first Taanis Esther, then we're going to finish off the Purim Sud, and then we're going to do Megillah reading. That's what we have up for tonight. Okay. As we know, this morning begins the fast of Taanis Esther. According to Rabbi Chaim Noah, it begins at approximately, I think, 3:44. What did you guys publish? 3:30. There's a great app that you guys can get that has the Alter Rebbe Zmanim. It actually has all the Zmanim in the world. It's called Zmanim. That's the name of the app. And you can set it. So like this is, as you see, 120 minutes, 3:44 a.m. Right. Okay. Okay, so bottom line is that, as we know, so since the fast actually begins in the morning, even though it still looks like nighttime outside, so we cannot eat or drink starting from that time, 3:30 or 3:44, whatever you're following. And if you go to sleep, as by any fast, you need to have in mind to eat prior to not prior to awakening. You have to have in mind to eat upon awakening before Allah. If you do not have that condition, then you cannot do it. So we can all do it right now in our minds or say it, okay? You don't have to wait until you go to sleep and then forget about it. You can do it right now and say, when I go to sleep tonight, I'm preconditioning that if I wake up, I'm having in mind to eat and drink before Allah. Now, if you didn't have that in mind, you can still drink, because drinking, we say, min adin, doesn't need a stipulation, so that would be mutter. Taanis Esther is called that name not because of the 3-day fast that Esther instituted. That is a misconception that is negated in the Rishonim and the Achrayim, including the Levush and the Mishnah Berurah. There are people who fast for 3 days in Nisan due to this fast. That is, there are people who fast on Monday, Thursday, and Monday in commemoration of the 3 fasts. But that is not what Taanis Esther is about. Taanis Esther is about the fast that was fasted on the day of battle, which was Yud Gimel Adar. On a day of battle, it is a Jewish tradition to fast, to invoke divine mercy for us to be victorious. The Rebbe has a very interesting chiddush, we say this every year, of why it's called Taanis Esther. So what's Esther got to do with it? The fact it's named Kohen Taanis Esther is what really misleads everyone to think, oh, this is a 3-day fast that's spoken about in the Gemara. And we're saying, no, it's not. So then what does Esther have to do with it? And the answer is, the Rebbe says, is that it's called it because Esther was the only one who fasted, because everyone else was in battle, right? The battle was against men, women, and children, so we have to fight the enemy to survive. Being that that's the case, only one person was in a safe haven, and that is Esther, so she's the only one who fasted. Everyone else had to eat, so they have strength to fight the battle.
So then how did it become accustomed to fast before a battle if everybody going to battle needs to eat?
No, the custom was for those who don't go to battle to fast.
Okay, got it.
That was the custom.
But didn't she fast before she went into Ashkenazi?
Correct, yes. She fasted then too. Not only her, everybody did.
That was a 3-day fast.
The 3-day fast, everyone fasted in Shushan, and Taanis Esther, Yud Gimel Adar of the next year, only she fasted. That is the Rebbe's chiddush on this matter. As we've mentioned before, one of the main things of a fast is a tikkun for tshuva, and obviously the place can bring down that one is to avoid anger in the extreme. Not to avoid extreme anger, but to extremely avoid anger. And that is because, right, that's when a person doesn't eat, it can get kind of edgy. The soul isn't so much in the body, and we can get kind of edged off. But this is something that the place can record. The person can be very careful on a fast day. As all rabbinical fast days, all pregnant and nursing women are exempt, do not need to fast. Okay, right, we have a regular fast day davening with slichas, Avinu Malkeinu, with exception to Mincha, being that it's Erev Purim. We do not recite Avinu Malkeinu, we do not recite Tachanun by Mincha, but tomorrow B'Shachris it is a regular fast day davening, which is obviously not a very fast davening. We have the whole Slichas that said, we have Kriyas HaTorah, etc.
Everybody wants to start their week, we can start here at 6:30.
Anenu, as all fast days by Ashkenazim, is only said by Mincha. Sfardim, as we know, say it also by Shachris, but the Shlech Tzibur says it in his Achzor Sashatz, also by Shachris as a separate bracha. I'm not going to focus too much on, let's move off from the fast day. I think it's pretty much redundant from all the other fast days we've already done this year. Let's go straight to Machzis HaShekel. The mitzvah Machzis HaShekel is performed in memory of the mitzvah deraisa Machzis HaShekel that used to be done in the times of the temple, which was one of the 613 commands. Even though today there is no biblical or even rabbinical obligation to give that half-shekel coin, it is a mere minhag which is recorded in the Ramah. And Nonetheless, this is the Minhag Yisrael, and therefore the custom is to give 3 coins. The coin is meant to be half of the currency of the country, so we all give a half a shekel coin here in Eretz Yisrael. If you're in America, you give a half a dollar, and so on and so forth, each country to their half currency. So where do we give it to? So ideally, it's supposed to go to any charitable institution. The Rebbe pointed out that since in temple times it was given to charitable institution, the Rebbe pointed out that since in temple times it was given to the temple, so therefore the best thing would be to give it to a shul, and the shul is likened to a mini temple. So you give mini tzedakah to a mini temple. That's the idea. So, but nonetheless, you can give it also to a poor person. That is not a problem. The minhag is to give 3 half shekel coins per family member, including wife and children, even though there's a debate whether children, even below age 20, where a wife has to give, women have to give machzis shekel, but regarding the minhag, we do so for them. As the Rama writes, we even give on behalf of a fetus. So if a woman is pregnant, we would give 3 half shekel coins on that fetus's behalf as well.
And we try to be makbid to give like half a shekel, like the whole coin, or like maybe like
The half shekel.
5 times 10.
Right, so if you're giving, let's say, 39 half shekalim, you don't give a 20 shekel bill and another 10, 5, and 4 shekalim. You give 39 half shekalim. Now, if you don't have enough, you can simply place 39 shekel in the pushka, take 3 half shekel, and do the, even though the Mishnah Berurah says this is a very strange custom, I don't know what they're doing with this thing, but this is the minhag.
I remember that half shekel, 3 like half dollars.
For America, yes.
They were silver.
Right, so some have a custom of being mahadir, that to use a half dollar for the sake of silver. This was the custom also in Eretz Yisrael many years back, but as the place can point out, there's no real mucker for this, and there's obviously no need, no obligation for there to be silver. And in fact, the United States coinage department stopped placing silver in their half dollar coins already for, I think, 50 or 60 years. 1965. Okay, well, 50 or 60 years, so pretty much there. So, so one second. So there is no need for there to be actual silver, and the half dollar coins of today have no silver. But in, of course, the United States, where that is the currency, then you should give half a dollar because that is the currency. But if you are in Europe, then you would give the half of the euro, et cetera. You know, wherever you are, you give half of that currency. If you have adult children, they should give them half of themselves. If they are not for whatever reason, then obviously there's nothing wrong. It's only can be assistful and helpful for you to give on their behalf. Okay?
Adult children is defined as?
Adult children, anyone who's not living in your home, they support themselves, they should give on their own behalf. The Rebbe pointed out that you should actually give the children the money for them to give on their own. But I mean, you're still giving them the money. But
Even if they're out of the home?
no, if they're in the home. Even if they're in the home.
Okay.
If they're out of the home, they're on their own.
18.
I got to pay my kids rent forever. He's out of the house. We're done, right?
That one obvious one that we'll pay doing right now.
Right.
The 18-year-old who's in
Right. So then you give them the money, and then they give the 3 half coins on behalf of themselves. There are some Sephardim who are machmir that they try to give the equivalence of a half shekel in temple times. We've discussed this in the past. This is not an obligation. As we already mentioned, the idea of giving the half shekel is initially an Ashkenazi custom to begin with, and somehow the Sephardim took it to extents that we never even saw. They adapted this Ashkenazi custom, and they actually give much more than Ashkenazim. They give the equivalence of the half shekel, but nonetheless, it's not min hadin. You don't have to. It's a nice thing. Those who want to do it, but and it changes every single year. Every year you see them publicizing, oh, this year the half shekel is this and this amount. That is not an obligation. Some Sephardim, I think today most Sephardim are accustomed to do this. That is a good minhag. Obviously, you're giving more tzedakah, but we don't have to do it. If you want to know how much it is, it's 9.6 grams of silver, which is the amount of grams of silver in the half shekel biblical coin. And you just have to look up in your market, look up in your, on your phone how much silver is worth. Tomorrow,
It's about $15 an ounce.
yes, you work per gram. So we do the per gram, and it ends up being about $5, size $6, okay? And then there's a discussion, do you include tax, do you not include tax? Okay, in any event. No, some say you have to do with tax as it comes into the country. Okay.
About a 20 shekel.
About 20 shekel, yeah. For those who want to be machmer like this approach. Okay, let us now go, so that's half shekel. We did Tainus Esther. Yes, oh, sorry, yes, we did not mention when, so it's brought down that l'chatchila, the minhag is to give it before mincha. In the event that you did not give it before mincha, you have a second chance, as writes the Magen Avram, to give it before shachris by the daytime. Okay, so that's the second time. Some even initially do it at that time. I'm sorry, they do it prior to the Megillah reading, not prior to shachris, but prior to Megillah reading, so that's in the middle of shachris, okay?
The Megillah reading in the morning,
Yeah, the morning Megillah reading.
not the Megillah reading at night.
Yes. Okay, let's go into where we left off last week. On this past Sunday, 2 days ago, we were in the middle of the Purim meal. Where were we up to? How many l'chaims did we have so far? Anyone remember? I guess we had a lot of l'chaims. If nobody remembers what we were up to. I think we touched upon it. We got a little bit into it.
$15.37.
Is what? 9.6 grams?
Live, 9.6 grams of pure silver.
Is $15?
37 cents.
Okay, I got to look that up. Something there doesn't sound right.
Excuse me.
Something there doesn't sound right.
No, I was wrong. That's per troy ounce.
Okay.
474.
Okay, thank you.
475.
$5 with tax. Tax here in Israel is 17%, so you do 17%. You got to do a tax.
Good mom.
That's what the actual coin was, a tax.
Okay. All right, so let's get into the Purim feast. So, okay, I think what we did, right, we did begin this, as I already said. The feast is only fulfilled specifically by Purim day, not by night, even though the custom, as the Rama writes, is to have a festivity as well as at nighttime. And I actually just read a very interesting song that was printed in Machzer Vitry, the student of Rashi, of Simcha Vitry, 1,000 years ago. And he writes during this song, a beautiful song about the Purim festivities, and he writes about the joyous Purim festivities that occurred at night and all the dancing. And he writes there a few interesting things. First, he writes that you should drink white wine. As we know in Chassidus, it says that white wine is wine that's misameach, while red wine, well, it seems like by them it was a 24-hour party. There was no night and day. It was just 24 hours straight. You can read the song. It's a very interesting song. He actually writes, and let's take this out of the recording somehow, that he even writes that woman would drink. I didn't understand that part really of that song because that's not the custom today, but that's what it seemed like he was writing. But not for public knowledge. And that, in general, women are not chayiv in the mitzvah of drinking. That's what's recorded in the Poskim. But a lot of people have taken issue with the song, by the way. Some even going as far as saying, "Oh, it's probably not from Rashi. Someone else wrote it." But that's what we have in print in front of us. So one of the things. Rashi's daughters. That's another interesting point. They said to drink white wine, which is more of a happy wine, while red wine is more of yain mashaker, right? It's the mimer we learned in Parshas Miketz. That's the drunk wine that makes a person depressed and sad and crying, and Purim is a happy day. So we want to have some simcha wine, right? Simcha wine, which is white wine. Right? We learned this in the mimer, that the red wine has the klippus. It's from the peel. Peel's klippus is depression. The rirus. So white wine is without the klippus, so it's happy.
And the Alter Rebbe brings that white wine is healthy.
Yes, that's brought in the Shulchan Aruch from the Talmud. It's healthier wine. Okay, with that said, so that was just to emphasize that the song does describe the festivities of the nighttime. When during the day should the meal be eaten? So as is written in the Ramah, we do the following, okay? And this is the custom also among Sfardim. We daven an early mincha, okay? Mincha earlier in the day. What time is mincha here in Purim?
1:30.
Okay, there you go. We daven mincha g'dayla, even though generally mincha g'dayla isn't always the most adapt time for davening mincha. You're really supposed to daven mincha ktana. The minhag is by days like this that we do daven by mincha g'dayla in order so we are able to fulfill the mitzvah of sudas and simchas Purim. Now, what the Ramah emphasizes is that one is required to eat majority of the meal before shkia, before sunset. If a person reads Megillah half before sunset and half after sunset, what did he do? Maybe it's not Purim anymore after sunset, right? So what did he do? He's not reading Megillah anymore. So same thing by the meal. If we start the meal before sunset, if we, let's say, washed on bread before sunset, and the main part of the meal was only eaten after sunset or after Sheisa Kechavim, then he's pretty much missed the mitzvah. That is the Ramah's approach, which is very logical and makes sense. However, as we know, Chassidim always have a problem with time. We always have a problem with time for some time already. And of course, we get our defenders who come and try to defend the practice of those latecomers who show up a minute before a minute before Shkia, and begin washing for bread, of course, doing Miftzayim and doing all these things, Baruch Hashem. So first of all, number one, the way to escape the Shaila, why do we be Shaila Jews? You want to, especially as Chassidim, have a meal in the morning. You can eat bread and have a little bit to eat in the morning. It's a good idea anyways, Pashachas. And in case you don't get to eat majority of your meal before Shkia, you already ate now a type of Sudas Purim that can be considered b'diavad, because it doesn't say anywhere in the day you have to eat it. So long as you have your meal after daybreak, or after sunrise, you've definitely fulfilled your mitzvah. So even if it's just breakfast, you've already done your mitzvah. And if it happens that things get pushed because of different things you're doing and you are not able to wash till later, you're okay with that. But nonetheless, the Nimukei Orach Chaim brings a justification saying that basically that so long as you wash before Shkia, then he wants to justify and say that it is okay that to have the rest of the meal or the main part of the meal later on. And so this is a discussion in the Poskim when they want to, so there is such a, what we can say, a limud schus, a justification for those who don't follow with the Ramarites, but everyone who could is supposed to do with the Ramarites and eat the main part of the meal before sunset. And this, of course, will also apply to the mitzvah, which we'll get to, of drinking wine or getting drunk, shikr, etc. That is an affiliate of the Purim Seudah meal. Even though we find that, as I told you from the song in Machzor Vitri, and from other sources, as well as the Rebbe Sichas, that the only mitzvah of Purim that's 24 hours is the drinking mitzvah. It officially belongs to the Purim Seudah. So, meaning that's part of the Purim Seudah is to drink wine during the Purim Seudah. I mean, just imagine what would have happened if Achashverosh and Haman and Esther all got drunk before that meal. There would probably never have been a meal, and maybe there wouldn't have been a Purim. So they wouldn't have showed up. So the main part of the getting drunk is specifically by the main Purim Seudah of drinking. So that too, why did I bring this up here? Because that too is to be done before Shkia, before sunset. Person does it after sunset, once again, it's no longer. But again, we have the justification. If you began doing it before sunset, it already continues after sunset. I'll mention a story that happened with Mitzion Abba Shul. Mitzion Shul was the Rosh Yeshiva of Parat Yosef Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. It was one of the big Sephardi poskim. And one time a Sephardi individual walked into the Suda. His Suda was minutes before Shkia, and he didn't fulfill any of the mitzvahs yet. So he quickly told him to wash. Says, and he was very machmer, as we're going to learn according to Kabbalah. You have to do kapshuta. You have to get drunk literally. So he said, how's he going to do it? So he began doing a whole concation. He began mixing all these different things. He gave him 2 shots. The guy was plastered. So the students there asked him, what did you give him? How did you learn this? He says, in our days, we used to do these mitzvahs properly, and we knew how to mix the different alcohols so a person can get drunk with 1 shot, 1 or 2 shots. And so he was able to do his mitzvah before Shkia.
The Ramah says to do it most of it before Shkia.
Yeah.
The Mechaber,
No, the Mechaber doesn't discuss it. It's an additional point. Okay, regarding the menu, so bottom line is like this. Well, we do not find an obligation saying you must wash on bread like Shabbos and Yontif. You must eat meat like Shabbos and like Yontif. Nonetheless, this is the preferred and the promoted and motivated way to do it, to have a meal with bread and to have actual meat. We discussed this on Sunday regarding having actual animal meat for the Simcha. We already mentioned that the Mechaber says that even an Einin is allowed to have meat. And he says it because it's like a biblical precept, and that's why we mentioned that it's important. So whoever's able to, the doctors permit it, health permits it, blood pressure permits it, everything permits it. That's the best thing to try to get. Other things, of course, that we eat, we already mentioned that there's a custom of eating zar einim, which is, we said, legumes, although, again, in this song of Machzor Vitri, he takes offense with anyone who eats legumes on Purim. He says, people who eat legumes on Purim, throw them out of the Jewish community. Because legumes is a food of mourners, so I guess they didn't want to ruin the Purim spirit. Right, so I mentioned that some do it the night before, so we said you can come by tomorrow night for your meal and have bread and hummus. Hummus is a legume, or tchina, and that as well during the day meal, that is also customary to have. Kreplach is a custom also to have on Purim. This is recorded in a number of Sfarim, and that has to do with the hiddenness of the miracle, right? You hide the meat inside it, in between the dough, etc. And of course, we have Haman Tashin, which is also a Minhag Yisrael that we eat. The three corners, there's different things brought down about it. And no, there are no parts of Haman's actual ears in the Haman Tashin. That is just a folklore. Okay. Libasume, one of our favorite mitzvahs of drinking. So this is all based on the Gemara. We know the Gemara says Chayiv Inish Libsum Bepuria, the Gemara in Megillah, and on 7b, and even though the Rishonim have different ways of understanding this Gemara, meaning even though everyone agrees that that statement is literal and it means that you have to get drunk, the question is, do we conclude with the statement? Because right after the Gemara said the statement, it told us a horrendous story of a murder that took place between Rabban and Reb Zera. So some Rishonim learn, hey, why do you think the Gemara told us this story? You think, by the way, guys, everybody get drunk on Purim, and by the way, this was a crazy story that happened when someone fulfilled this and he murdered his friend. Why do you think the Gemara is telling us this story? It's basically trying to tell you that, leave it for the books. Don't actually do this. Don't do this. Don't get drunk. So that's how some learn, because as many Rishonim actually omit. They omit. And others, like the Rambam, he had a very interesting way of, arbitrating this discussion by writing the following: during your Purim meal, you eat your Purim meal and have wine and go to sleep. That's what he writes. He doesn't write to get drunk. He writes, have wine and go to sleep. That's really what the Ramah brings down, that approach. However, the Machar ben Hishel Chanaruch took a very strong, hardline approach to help all of the liquor salesmen, and that you have to literally get drunk on wine. You can fill the mitzvah with other alcoholic beverages as well, but wine is the preferred one. We already mentioned from Machzor Vitri, white wine is the preferred one, okay? But wine, because wine is what the miracle all happened with. It wasn't with Smirnoff, and it wasn't with Absolute, and it wasn't with whiskey. It was with wine. So that is...
Wine is just preferred, it seems like it should be required.
Right. So yes, it is preferred, because drunk is drunk. If somebody DUI was stopped on driving, they're not going to say, well, I didn't have wine, I had alcohol, I had vodka. If he's yaitse for the police, he's yaitse for us too on Purim. So alcohol is alcohol, as they say.
The term drunk, but that's not really...
Okay, what does drunk mean? So very good question. So one thing's for sure. There is a debate in the Rishonim of whether we take the Gemara literally, you should even use the word drunk or not, or you shouldn't do what the Gemara says. While the Mechaber says literally you do have to get drunk, to what level we'll discuss, okay? But the Ramah says no. The Ramah takes it like the other opinions who say there's a whole story here of what happened. Let's learn our lessons. Let's not do repeat history. Let's learn our lessons. So he says just drink a little bit more than usual, than you usually do, and take a nap, go to sleep. But the Ramah does conclude that everyone should do l'shem shamayim, and that's the bottom line arbitration that I already see now. That the arbitration is that the mitzvah, Judaism looks at getting drunk as a very terrible thing. It's we all know what happened with Noach, and all the terrible things that come from drinking alcohol. We know all the stories with the Saita because of alcohol. Alcohol causes people to do very stupid and silly things. We know that. That's why we tend to despise drinking. Even those who think, Chabad loves drinking, Fabregans. If you look into Lubavitch literature of the Rebbeim, they all write how mashke is something is to be hated, is to be despised. It's just something it's like medicine. Who likes medicine? If you like medicine, you need to go to, person who's go to a withdrawal program. No one, you're not supposed to like medicine. You need it when you need to take it. You're not supposed to like it. So that's the view on mashke, and that's the real Jewish view on mashke. On the other hand, we agree that it does have a potent power that's able to affect different things in our emotions. So says the Ramah, if we're able to do like the literal statement, and that the mashke that we drink go into our godly soul and affect a beautiful and very spiritual environment within ourselves and others, then do it literally. But if there's worry that perhaps the alcohol will enter into the left side, the animal soul, and then we'll have from a little animal, from a sheep, he now turns into a lion, then obviously that is not a very good thing, and that person should not drink. He should do like the Ramaz approach, have a little more than usual, and just go to sleep. The Rebbe Farbrengens at times of Purim mentioned that one person should get literally drunk and he'll be yaitse everybody else. I've explained he doesn't mean it literally from a halachic perspective. He just said that since I see everyone here is lazy, people aren't drinking, so at least one person will try to be mechai everybody, but not that it fulfills halachic. Really, halachically, every person has to do this obligation. The arbitration in Kabbalah of the Arizal is that it's absolutely literal, meaning not only do we real like the Mechaber, that chayiv inish lipsume, and you don't fulfill your obligation by simply drinking a thing of schnapps and going to sleep, but that the definition of drunk, adela yoda ben Aaron Haman, the Baruch Mordechai, is also literal. He says you have to reach a point. It goes very well in line with the Chassidic Maimarim of Purim. That the whole idea of Purim is that the Jewish soul remains steadfast against any compromise in our religion, even though we could have saved ourselves, or at least the individual, from the decree of Haman by, so to say, overthrowing our religiosity and moving to assimilation. And we refuse to do that. That touched upon such a deep core in the soul that's what we need to try to reach again on every Purim. The Rizal writes like this in Perei Chaim, that Purim, he writes this, Purim has not ended. Purim is continuous till Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu and onwards. That's why Purim will not be nullified. And we're each Purim trying to add more to the revelation of that essence of the soul. It's a continuous process. So he says, how do you reach it? So he says, Mashke, Nichnas Yain Yatzasai. Wine enters and secrets come out. Again, a person who is not a Kabbalist is not able to, or is not on the right level to be able to properly have proper character traits when he is drunk, then he's not doing a good thing by getting drunk. But if he is, then this is what Kabbalah promotes, that a person should get literally drunk till he's literally out of his mind. The seichel is no longer confusing anything, and his godly soul is completely revealed. He reaches the essence of a soul, and that's why you can even say, Baruch Haman. He says, even though it says that you don't do some Baruch between Baruch Mordechai and Ar Haman, it doesn't mean to say Ar Mordechai, chas v'shalom. No one says to say cursed is Mordechai, it just says, say blessed is Haman. As he says that when a person reaches this revelation of the essence of the soul, and he then says, even Haman is blessed, he refines Amalek, refines Haman, and that we can elevate even Amalek, even Haman, as it says in the Gemara in Gittin, that B'nai Banav Shel Haman Lumdu Toiv B'nai Brak. So that is the Kabbalah's approach, but most, the children, the descendants of Haman learn Torah in B'nai Brak. So that's the idea of elevating and refining Haman. But nonetheless, the majority of all the Paiskim, even in the Mechaber's opinion, in the Gemara's opinion, obviously they take note, what does this mean? How can you ask someone to get so drunk of not knowing the difference? And they all give different opinions of what this means. Some say it's about not doing the gematrias, and until you drink enough, until your mind isn't able to do gematrias, which a lot of people can't do even without drinking anyways. But nonetheless, I brought here about 4 different opinions, each one lowering the status of the drinking status. What does it mean until you don't know the difference? But once again, as we said, the literal meaning, as Kabbalah arbitrates, is that it is literal. A person is chai libsum b'puria. Okay, so we said before that even though it seems like it's a 24-hour party, but it's mainly written about in the Purim Seudah. So the main time really doing it is by day. And I don't know, a lot of people, they have difficulty getting drunk twice. It's like the body is like, relax, give me a break. So it's hard to be drunk and then sober and then get drunk again. The body's not used to it, so either just be drunk the whole 24 hours and don't go to sleep, or mainly drink during the daytime, during the day meal. That's the main time of the drinking. Okay, well, let's just discuss some drinking halachas that people need to know, which is called DUIs, davening under the influence, okay, or BUI, benching under the influence. And of course, DUI, driving under the influence. I'll already say this now. It is obviously completely forbidden legally and according to halacha for someone to drive if he has drunk alcohol. And that's why I think it's a very good idea for all parties to demand of a safe box for people to deposit their keys, and only those who did so will be given to drink, because there's a lot of people who drink and drive on Purim. They don't realize, they think they have special godly protection, and they chas v'shalom, they endanger themselves, endanger other people. And if someone does such a thing, you can call the police on them. You say, if you're going to drive now, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to tell them there's a drunken driver driving around, and they're probably going to tell you what's new. That's what we're doing all day, chasing after these guys. But nonetheless, it is something very serious, something very dangerous. People have to be very careful regarding this matter. That's regarding DUI in that sense. Regarding davening, so let's first deal with brachas. There is no problem whatsoever saying a bracha under the influence of alcohol, and that is fine. Okay, the only time that we do have a little bit of a discussion is by Birchas Hamazon. To bench under the influence of alcohol, the halacha is as follows. If you are satiated from your meal, then you bench no matter what, in all cases, which is usually the case. Okay, so bottom line is that you ate a Sudas Purim, you're satiated from your meal, even if you're extremely drunk, you still have an obligation to bench because it's a deraisa to bench when you're satiated from the meal. If you're not satiated, then in that case, we say that you should only bench if you can, if you're not in a very drunk state, meaning you're still able to speak fluently in front of the king. If you're not, then you should wait a little bit. Regarding davening, so it's as follows. So long as you're, what's brought in the poskim is literally the DUI test, not the breath test, but the walking test used by police. Okay, if you're able to walk in a straight line without doing a dance while you're doing it, then you're pretty much still able to daven. If you're able to drive, you're able to daven. That's the rule. Okay, so that's even if you drank a lot. If you're able to do that, your mind is still good enough, you are able to daven Shemona Esrei. If you cannot do that, then obviously you are not allowed to daven, and it says a person who davens in that kind of drunk state, tefillah te'eva, and it's like likened to idol worship. So better not to be machmer, do not daven if you're in a drunk state of this extent, and either daven later when you wake up, or do tashlumin, daven shachris twice the next day, or whatever it is when you wake up, maybe mincha twice, whatever it is. So, but definitely not to daven in a drunken state. That is a severe and grave prohibition. However, if you pass the test, you pass the DUI test, you can walk straight. In that case, the halacha is daven from a sitter, look inside for every word, and you're good. But to daven by heart is forbidden, even if you only had a revius of wine. Even if you only had a little bit of wine, it doesn't do it Purim. Let's say you were at a restaurant, you had some nice wine, a nice cup of wine, a revius. According to halacha, you're going out of daven mincha, you have to daven in your sitter. You're not allowed to daven bal peh if you drank a revius of wine.
We have another difficulty. Somebody has to read the Megillah and everybody has to listen to the Megillah.
Right. Right.
In that state,
Yeah.
whatever state that is.
That's true. Here in Sfas and all the Suffolk cities, yeah. Okay. Regarding, so the Simcha of Purim has an interesting twist in the laws of Choshen Mishpat, in which we find the following discussion. There are poskim who write, this is the opinion of the Ramah, who brings it in the name of Mari Mimintz, that, and let's from here, did we discuss costumes last class? Costumes? No? Okay, so the idea that we wear costumes, or that people wear costumes on Purim, is not just a thing of kids that was made up, but it's a long Jewish tradition of many generations. It's first recorded in a sefer written by Reb Klonumis, Ben Klonumis from Germany in the 11th century. And there he discusses people getting all dressed up in costumes, adults, for Purim parties that they would have. And there and in other records it's recorded that it was for some reason very common for people to cross-dress. So men would get dressed like women, and women would get dressed like men. Now, they all discuss, is this mutter according to halacha? And the Ramah brings them evidence that it is mutter because they're doing it not for the sake of cross-dressing, which is a biblical prohibition, but for the sake of simcha, for jest, for joy. So he has a chiddush that cross-dressing is only forbidden when it's for the sake of actually trying to emulate the other gender, but if you're just doing it for some side reason, like for example, if the men's bathroom is all full and I want to use the women's bathroom, so I quickly borrow a shaitel and go ahead and go in order to get into the women's bathroom. That is not an isser because I'm not doing it for the sake of, no one should try this of course, but this is just an example. Or I'm cold and my wife has a sweater, which is clearly a feminine sweater for a woman. I'm allowed to wear it because I'm allowed to not be cold. I'm allowed to warm myself up. I'm not trying to be a woman by wearing the sweater. And so on and so forth. This is the argument given to permit it. However, bottom line, the Shlah and others say it should not be done, and that's the halacha. We should not be cross-dressing on Purim. But nonetheless, I'm bringing this up because, first of all, beware, because there are people who do this till today, so not all the women you see in shul are actually women, and you should throw them to the Ezras Nashim. They may be a male. And number two is that we see that how the Simcha of Purim was so emphasized to the point that even these mitzvahs, these prohibitions, were, so to say, put aside for the sake of the Simcha of Purim. Another discussion that's brought down: if someone injures somebody else, and this happens all the time, a person's drunk, he rips your kapati, he rips your jacket, he rips your shirt, rips your beard off. I don't know, he does. This happens with drunk people. You have to stay far away from them. But if it happens, you see chayiv. The Ramah rules here too. No. Someone who's involved in the mitzvah of Simchas Purim and out of the mitzvah, things happen, he's not liable for damages due to it. So there's all discussion if it's personal damages versus monetary. Monetary is not liable, but physical damage he is liable. But one thing's clear. That is the ruling of Ashkenazim. There are cases that you would not be liable for damage. However, the Machaber rules for Sfardim that they are liable. So if a Sephardi gets drunk and damages an Ashkenazi, he has to pay. And if the Ashkenazi who's already drunk damages back the Sephardi, he doesn't have to pay. So therefore, the Sephardim Rabbanim all say, stay away from Ashkenazi areas on Purim.
Choice of law in the law.
Well, it's like two different states. Imagine like you're in Florida, you're a Floridian citizen, you get judged by Floridian law, and then you went into the Georgia state line. Yeah. So that's basically how it is. So they say to stay far away from Ashkenazim on Purim. Party with the Sephardi, right? Okay, any Sudas Purim question? We're going to move right on to...
What is the purpose or?
Oh, okay. The intent of the idea, well, first of all, when you wear costumes, it adds in the simcha and the fun and the joy. But there's also a deeper meaning that has to do with the whole idea of Purim, is that the whole year we're basically wearing masks on our personalities. We're like putting up fronts of who we really are. And in Purim, Nechasar Yitzchak, so the real person is supposed to come out. So by us wearing a costume, it's so to say that the costume is really what I wear the whole year. This is who I really am. This is, that the whole idea of being in disguise is emphasizing that there's something much deeper there that on Purim we try to reveal. There's different reasons brought down, but this is one of the main approaches brought down. Okay, regarding Megillah reading. That's written in the Ramah. The Ramah writes to wear Shabbos clothing, but nonetheless, there's nothing wrong for a Lubavitcher to wear costumes as well. That was the old minhag of all Jewry. So if he wants to wear a costume, that's okay. If he doesn't want to wear a costume, then yes, we tell him, wear Shabbos clothing. Okay, regarding Megillah reading, so of course one of the main mitzvahs of Purim is hearing the Megillah or reading the Megillah, which we fulfill by night and by day. The night reading is not as important as the day reading. That doesn't mean we chas v'shalom belittle it or do anything different, but just to understand that the main obligation of the reading was appointed for the day reading. In fact, some say that the night reading used to not be done originally by Purim. It only became later adapted in the Talmudic times. This is not for certain. This is under debate. Bottom line is that everyone agrees that the main reading is the day reading of Purim. With that said, everybody is obligated, men, women, and children. We've mentioned a few times women have the same level obligation as men on Purim. They have to hear Megillah. And likewise, children, boys, and girls who are of the age of chinuch have to be educated to hear the Megillah. Preferably, it's brought down that Megillah should be heard in shul, the community shul, by everyone. So if a person says, well, I like making a breakaway minyan for Purim with my own banking of Haman, I like doing it privately, halacha says you're not supposed to do so. It's meant to be communal. Every shul should gather all the members of that shul, and everyone should come to that shul for the Megillah reading. And ideally, women and children of age should try also to make it to that reading, but as the custom always was, that for various reasons women didn't come to the main reading, so the husbands would read for the women at home, or there would be another public reading just for the women. Children who are of age that they don't know how to be quiet outside of the Hamans, they should obviously not be brought to shul because they disturb the other woman, they disturb all the other daveners, and that is just plain out simply wrong. This is not just Purim, but the whole year, you are not to bring children who disturb to shul. It is not a good idea in chinuch to educate a child. The shul is a place where you scream and cry just like your house. That's for the home. In shul we act respectfully, and until you're of age to do so, we're not going to let you stay for a while. You can stay for a little bit. For the Megillah reading, obviously, if a woman still has a baby, an infant, she shouldn't bring him to shul. She should find a babysitter or go to a woman's reading, okay, later on. Regarding, this was today's daily halacha, yesterday's daily halacha we discussed in length regarding woman reading the Megillah, and the final summary of that is that initially a woman is to hear the Megillah reading from a man due to a number of reasons of the question of whether a woman is vowed to read the Megillah or the minhag that was always that a woman heard from a man. But nonetheless, in the event that there is no reader available, male reader available, and it's just her, so if she has a kosher Megillah available, then we tell her to read for herself with the bracha. That's not a problem at all. Furthermore, if the man doesn't know how to read, let's say a woman has a sick father who is unable to read, so she can read the Megillah for him with a blessing for herself and for him, as she is obligated just like a man.
There's no reason for the woman, for the man, after to say the bracha,
If he's able to say the bracha, of course he should say the bracha.
even though she's reading.
Correct. That's always the case. Whenever, if we're reading for women and we already heard Megillah, then they should say the bracha, not us. The halach is that we only say the bracha for others when we're not doing when we already did our obligation, if they don't know how to say it. But if they know how to say it, then they are to say the blessing and not us. We have intent to fulfill the rabbinical command of Megillah reading when we hear it. But in addition to that, the place can bring down, some place can record that you need to have kavanah as well by every single word to pay attention to the word. So some place can actually debate if people are really Yaitz and Megillah reading, as we know what happens when a monotone continues in the previous generation for 10 minutes, 3 generations go 20 minutes, our generation for 30 seconds, what happens to the mind? The mind begins wandering and going everywhere else but the Megillah reading itself. It's very therapeutic to go to sleep and all these other things, right? So the question is a person Yaitse in such a case? And so the place can really debate this, and they say that there is a very strong argument to make that a person can only be Yaitse if he's not just physically hearing the words, but he's paying attention to the words. So he has to pay attention to the entire Megillah. So for that reason, the place can record that it is extremely beneficial to have a kosher Megillah in front of you and read along, because when you read it, we don't care where your mind is at. Even if your mind is wandering in the middle of the reading, and which sometimes can mean that you'll say some extra words in the middle of the reading based on what your mind is on, as we know, but nonetheless, you're still Yaitse because you went ahead and you read every single word. So that's why kosher Megillah is the preferred thing to have, but if you don't have a kosher Megillah, you should have a chumash in front of you, not just for the sake, as we'll discuss in a moment, if you miss a word, but simply to help you focus and pay attention to it. Regarding missing a word, so it's a debate amongst the Rishonim whether, I'll start from a different angle. It's brought down that a Megillah is usually the first scribal work that Seifrim begin with, newbies, new Seifrim, novices, and that is because it is the most lenient of all the scriptural works. While a Sefer Torah is one level of severity, and tefillin and mezuzahs have an even higher level of severity. Megillah, writing a Megillah, the kashrus for living Megillah is very lenient in terms of that. Even if some of the words are messed up or even missing, it's kosher so long as majority is there. So if you have a Megillah that the first paragraph, the second paragraph, and the last paragraph are fine, and the middle is choppy, one sentence here, one sentence missing, it's still kosher so long as the majority of Megillah is still around. So because the Seifrim begin with writing a Megillah, because even if they make a mistake, there's no real issue. However, the debate that ensued based on this is that, what about hearing the Megillah? If somebody missed a word, am I Yaitse? And the answer to that is as follows. The Mishnah Berurah rules based on the Rishonim, and this is the final halacha, that if you missed even one letter, not just a word, even a letter, a person is not Yaitse in the Megillah reading, and he's to hear it again without a blessing, because maybe is it, so we don't say the bracha again. But nonetheless, the Megillah reading he has to hear again from that missed area. So if a person walked into shul by Bimei Achashverosh, Vayehi, he missed Vayehi. Well, he missed Vayehi, he has to now hear the Megillah from the beginning. Right. But if he walked out before the last word, then all he has to do is read that last word. That's it. okay? We go by what you missed. Now, if you missed it in shul, you're in shul, you didn't miss it, but you didn't hear it because of the noise or whatever it is. So that's why we have a kosher Megillah in front of us, we read along, and we're good to go. If you don't have a kosher Megillah, as is brought down, you read along in a chumash, and you read the missed word until you catch up to the chazan. As the Mishnah says, you can't read the Megillah l'mafrei retroactively, and therefore to just say the missed word and then continue hearing means that you said that missed word in the wrong order of the verses.
But if the Megillah could be kosher with missing words in it. So
Right.
how are you, if you're
Right, so
following
they
the kosher
say,
Megillah,
great question. So what the argument is, of the way we rule, is that in terms of the validity of the Megillah scroll, it doesn't need every word written. But in terms of the validity of the reading, every word has to be read. And they said it's like a letter. Just imagine if I know the wording of this letter, so if I read in the missing words, you still heard everything. But if I read you a letter and I skipped every other word or every other sentence, it's choppy and you can't make sense of what's going on. I mean, just imagine this was a movie and you skipped like 1 minute every 1 minute. There's no movie anymore. You don't understand what's flying in the place. So you have to get the material into your ears one way or another. So that's why they say that while we can be lax with if it's written or not, we can't be lax with you getting the information. So even one letter would be no good, according to that approach, this is how we rule. So again, you have to catch up to the reader, and that's why the poskim write. It's a good idea to, by Haman, to just read a few words onwards. And there's nothing wrong with reading it in the Chumash, because again, you can read up to half, 50% of the Megillah Baal Peh by heart, because even if the Megillah is missing words, you're still Yaitse by reading those words by heart. So even a non-kosher Megillah would be good in that case. The Megillah reading has to be done during daytime, which is from sunrise to sunset. Bidi Eved, you can read after sunset without a blessing. So if someone still didn't hear Megillah reading and you're beginning to read and it's not going to finish before sunset, do not say a bracha on that Megillah reading. Or, we've mentioned this a number of times, you can do the trick, take a child and teach him the bracha and then start the Megillah reading. You're allowed to teach brachas to children, so tell him, Sheikh Shemazvan Amrik Megillah, and then you teach them the bracha Shal Sanisim, then you teach them the bracha of Shechiyanu, and then you start the Megillah reading. That's how you get out of the debate, this machlekes. But nonetheless, a person has to be careful that he tries to finish it before Shkia of the day of the reading. While the Megillah reading does not require a minyan, it is highly preferable, especially based on what we already said, that it should be read in shul with the whole community. And also, without a minyan, we lose the last bracha of Rav Sirvein. Rav Sirvein, according to most poskim, and this is the way we rule, is a bracha that can only be recited with a minyan present. So if there's no minyan present, the bracha can no longer be said. Due to that reason, if by a woman's minyan, we practically do not say the bracha of Rav Sirveinu because there isn't a minyan of men present over there.
you could do Megillah reading after the Suda, as opposed to before.
Well, ideally, okay, thank you for bringing it up. The halach is that you're not allowed to eat a meal before Megillah reading. So what that means is that after the fast is over tomorrow, you will see that the shul is not going to bring out cakes and cookies and coffee. It's not because they're trying to be cheap. It's because you're now allowed to eat, or before the Megillah is read. And so we can basically continue our fast. You could drink. It's not. You can have a cup of water or something. That's not a problem. But if someone's not feeling well, you can break your fast on the fast. Right. Yeah. So if you need, in a time of need, up to kibbutz of 55 grams, have 54 grams of cake, have 54 grams of cake, a few bananas, a few apples, believe me, you'll be fine. Have some coffee, a piece of fish, it's almost like a whole meal. Yeah, all these things. We just don't wash and we don't have 55 grams, okay? That's what we avoid. That's what we avoid even in a time of need. In a time of need, if it's not a time of need, then obviously we should try not to eat anything.
You mentioned now fish. Back at the meal, you didn't mention fish, although Purim is very associated with fish.
Right, the mazel of other, you're saying. The mazel of other associated with fish. Right. I don't remember let me see if I wrote anything here about fish. Right. Right. So yeah, I don't recall seeing anything discussed regarding fish, but you can eat fish, there's no problem. Yeah. Fish is okay. What did I want to mention here? Right, we said, right, so we have a verbal, and we don't say the after blessing. If there is no minyan, we don't say Rav Yisrivenu. Can you have someone take over the Megillah reading? Let's say you're reading Megillah and the guy is, let's say he's also under the influence. You're doing the time reading for a lot of people and he's done. He can't continue reading. The answer is it's not a problem. You can have someone else take over the Megillah reading in middle and continue reading for the other person. Regarding sitting versus standing, so you are not required to stand for Megillah reading unless you are the Balkei. If you are the reader, then for Kvayat Tzibur you're required to stand. If you are reading just for yourself, you can read sitting. You can sit, enjoy, relax, and read the Megillah. But when you're in public, you have to have honor and respect for the Tzibur, for the public, and therefore that's when we require the person to stand. Obviously, it's forbidden to talk during the reading because besides that you're making a hefsek, you will lose a word, and we already said before of the severity of losing a word. So that is a problem, so we don't talk until after the bracha of the Rav Es Rivenu. The blessings are mainly said by the Balkari, and we listen Amor Yaitze, but some are accustomed to say the bracha to themselves, especially if they have a kosher Megillah. It's okay for them to do that. That was the Rebbe's custom as well. They say the bracha themselves. But the bracha of Rav Yisrivenu shouldn't be said, because you said before, it's only said with the minyan. So the minyan has to say, meaning the Shliach Tzibur has to say, and therefore the person himself should not say it. Believe it or not, it is discussed what is the din if someone fell asleep during Megillah reading. You see, this was not a new phenomenon. This was something we understand. If you're in a shul where the guy reads very quickly and enthusiastically, okay, but sometimes it's a 30-minute, 35, 40-minute reading. It's mamash very therapeutic for sleeping. Person dozes off. What's the halacha? The halacha is a person who dozes off. So it says like this: if he's what's called nim v'loy nim, meaning that he's in the process of dozing, that if you ask him a basic, simple question like, what are the colors of the rainbow, or what are the colors of a traffic light, and he can answer you, then it's okay. But if you answer him a deep question, he won't be able to answer you. But if even that question he can't answer, he's like, what? And then that's already too much. He's not, does not fulfill his obligation. This is, by the way, by a reader, by a listener, if he fell asleep to the point that he can't hear a word anymore, then obviously he does not fulfill his obligation. He would have to, read it from there and onwards. That's all. And if it happens, you just borrow Megillah and you read from there and onwards. You have to read the whole Megillah again. Who can be a Balkari? Can you be a Balkari if you don't know how to read the trap, the nigun of the reading? So the answer is yes, you can. And the main thing that we care about, we care about everything, but in the time of need, the main thing we care about is the pronunciation. So if you can pronounce the words properly, you're good to go. You can say with a blessing and read the Megillah to yourself from a kosher Megillah. You can also listen to a recording and repeat after him in the recording and do it that way. That's another option of doing it. Today's Deilach, we discussed about hearing Megillah through a microphone, and we explained that this is not good. If you heard, or a woman heard Megillah from a microphone, she should hear it again without a blessing. Those places who use microphones, there are places who use microphones for Megillah reading. It's not a good thing what they're doing.
And if we're not totally fluent in Hebrew?
So there's a discussion of whether the Megillah, and it's another one of the leniencies in the scribal writing of Megillahs, can be written in a foreign language. And some say yes, and the real halacha is that it can be written in a foreign language, but not in the lettering of the foreign language, meaning Hebrew words of the foreign language, not translated, right, like transliterated. So, and it was in the days of Achashverosh, we would write Aleph, Nun, Daled, and it, Aleph, Yud, Tes, and it was double two vavs, Samach. And it was in the days of Achashverosh. So we don't do this, obviously, but it's technically a kosher Megillah. And there's discussion even writing it literally in English and being, I'd say, but it has to be read in the language it was written in. So that's why we have a problem. So you're Ariyates even if you don't understand. But because of that, it's a whole discussion. Can it be written, in English, and then everyone will hear in English and understand the story a little better. But nonetheless, today we only have available on the market Hebrew written Megillahs in the Hebrew language.
Right, but if I'm following it but looking at the English.
So the main thing is to hear the words. You have to make sure that you're focusing on the words and hearing the words. Now, if you're reading like a translation and you can literally keep up, and that's great because that helps you keep your mind focused on what he's saying. But you know, if like I'm on Rishon and he's already on Shlishi, then it's not the best thing. It's very different than Kriyas HaTorah. Kriyas HaTorah is a communal obligation. So if I'm somewhere else during the reading Kriyas HaTorah, it's not the worst thing. It doesn't invalidate my hearing Kriyas HaTorah because it's a communal obligation. But this is a personal obligation. When the Baal Koreh is reading Kriyas Megillah for us, it's as if we're reading. He's fulfilling the personal mitzvah of mine. So we have to, be focused on that. Regarding
On the subject of amplification, is it all right to amplify the voice of the Baal Koreh, let's say with like a really big paper or plastic cone?
So the issue of amplifying.
No electricity.
I understand. What's that?
No electricity whatsoever.
Yeah. The issue with amplifying that I mentioned that those shuls who do so should not do so, and I explained in length why in today's daily halacha. There are some very firm places who do so. They claim that under the claim that, we're only doing it to amplify the voice, but we already checked. Everyone who's here can hear the Megillah anyway, so we're not really. It's not like they're hearing it because of that. But my argument on that is very simple. Then why are you doing it? If they can hear it, then they can hear it. If you amplify the voice, the second you create another sound, everyone agrees that when there is more noise in the room, it's more difficult to hear a sound. So by you making more noise, which is the amplified sound that comes out of the microphone, maybe now they really can't hear the voice of the Megillah reader. And if they can, then why are you... So the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be done. That's why I tell people, if you heard it this way, go hear another Megillah reading without a bracha. Nonetheless, in your case situation, which is just amplifying through another means, so we have here a tshuva of Halachas Ketanis, who writes that amplification of mechanical amplification of non-electronic, the whole issue with electronics is that there is an electronic pulse that's recreating the sound, isn't it? You're not hearing the sound from the person. But here in this case, you are hearing the sound for the person. It's just a mechanically amplified sound, and that would be kosher. But should a person do the lichatchila? Maybe you shouldn't do the lichatchila. Maybe it's not the best thing. But if that's what's necessary for this community, let's say you're in the Shul of Alexandria where they had 20,000 people by the Megillah reading, so what are you supposed to do? So either you do many mini minions. If you want to do one mini minion, you have to use some mechanical way of amplifying the sound. I just want to conclude with one more thing, and that is regarding the stomping of Haman. So the Ramah writes that it is a Jewish custom and Minhag Yisrael Torah to stomp out the name of Haman in shul. There are many ways that this custom is recorded. The original custom in Rishonim was to write Haman's name on like a piece of wood or stone and then bang it till it gets erased, or writing it on the shoes and stepping on it. And from there evolved the custom of making noise by his name. Rav Chaim Falaji writes that there's a Masorah that the more we bang Haman down here, the more they patch him upstairs. That's why it's a Minhag Yisrael that we get him good, as they say during the writing of Haman. There's some other minhagim recorded of this type, and this is recorded in the Rishonim. Dr. Moshe brings it down in the name of the Aruch, that people used to make a mannequin shape of Haman and burn him on Purim night. Big festivity, burning the mannequin of Haman on Purim night. And so the idea of abolishing Haman, et cetera, was a very old Jewish custom. However, the poskim do scream out against the new idea, which has been around, I think, now for almost 100 years, of toy guns and smoke bombs, and which totally destroys the ability of the congregation to focus and listen and do that, and that's all, of course, no good. It all has to be civil, as they say, civil disobedience. It has to be with, regarding Haman.
Chabad minhag is not every time Haman's name is referenced, it's only...
Correct, right, so every community does, their custom, and we only do it when it's mentioned with a description of his evilness, but otherwise we don't do it. Okay, once again, getting back to the eating issue, that's what I forgot to mention the last time, that during Purim Day, so we don't have a Suda before eating here in Megillah. The custom is like this. From the letter of the law, to have a coffee, a cup of water, a little something is not asur min adin. But the minhag is that we fast until Megillah reading. That's the minhag of many people of Chassidim, to fast until you hear Megillah. So that's what a person should try to do. But if, let's say a woman who's not going to be hearing Megillah till, let's say, a woman's reading, which is taking place much later, then she can do like the letter of the law, have a coffee, have a drink, have a little bit to eat, less than a kibetz, as we said, less than 55 grams. And obviously she can't start her meal until Megillah reading takes place. Can't start her Purim Suda meal until Megillah reading takes place. Okay, that's all for today. I wish everybody a freilich and Purim, a successful and a safe Purim.
What about taking a haircut between now and the way it falls out of Shabbos?
When do you want to get a haircut?
That's what I'm asking.
So you can't get a haircut on Thursday because we don't do malacha on Purim. Okay, so malacha is not done on Purim, similar to like Chol Hamoed. But Friday, since for us it's only a suffix, it's brought down. You can be lenient regarding malacha. So you can get a haircut this Friday.